Today on the Star Trek Critic Legacy, as usual, points are taken away for each error, and the first error is opening credits 6 minutes into the show. The plot of this show, the poker game at the beginning, foreshadows everything else that happens. Data's poker face is getting better. Hiding the card in the deck and taking it all the way to the end is just like seating a double agent in an escape operation. The Jack of Hearts is Ishara, and Riker is the coalition who manipulates Data as the card gets deeper and deeper into Alliance territory. The Jack of Hearts made it all the way to the end, but Data saw it coming. However, Riker does not keep that card on top, and the top card is one of the first to be discarded, so the scene does not match what Data says, so -1 point. Data followed Riker at each step, but missed Ishara all the way through. It was probably that tight cat suit that kept Data distracted. However, just because Data called him out doesn't mean he won that bet. It should have stayed with Riker. Now they all take a break. This episode celebrates a milestone for Star Trek, episode number 80. The original Star Trek only had 79 shows. The last one, Turnabout Intruder, took place on Camas 2, and this is their little homage to the original series. Data plays the helm piano while Jean-Luc performs Picard maneuver number 1. Wesley isn't in this episode, so -1 point. O'Brien says I number 1. 1 point lost because that is lieutenant rank and he is a chief petty officer. The ship explodes, Riker stands up and turns into Captain Picard. Luckily the crew got into an escape pod, but they're going to the crappy section of the galaxy. 1 point lost here, the doors open way too soon. Worf is the only one that shows concern about Dr. Crusher's well-being on a dangerous planet. Dr. Crusher says, Worf, you're just being sexist. They actually beam down facing outwards like they should, but -1 point for the first and second officers beaming down to a dangerous area together. This looks like it says Wheel King backwards. Probably the only time you see Data and Dr. Crusher aiming phasers together. These hoodlums say they're from the Starship Enterprise. If you want to get technical, the crewmen are from the Argo, not the Enterprise. You know this is a boring planet if all they got out of this raid is synthetic alcohol. So did they enter on the Alliance side and then followed the hoodlums over to the coalition side? Hayne is a total dirtbag. He sees this as an opportunity to take advantage of everyone to preserve the peace. It probably wasn't a good idea to offer this much information, even though it was only a little bit. And now, the card trick at the poker game begins.
I'll bet that I can find any card that you hide in this deck. And furthermore, I will make you help me find it.
Picard won't do business with gang members. And cheap wine is a really bad bribe for somebody whose brother owns a winery. This is Picard maneuver number 2. This is Haynes' way of saying, we're gonna screw you over and we're gonna have Tasha's sister do it right in front of you.
Pick a card. Don't let me see it.
Picard's like, okay. For the ladies watching, never have your hands in this position in this area. It does not look right. Deanna warns them, and as usual, they just ignore her. Picard says, let's ignore Deanna like we always do and get ourselves into a sticky situation like we didn't know it was coming. The transporter messes her up and she thinks she's Commander Data. She calls Data a cybernetic device. How insulting. Data says the Enterprise is not a ship of war, it is a ship of exploration. It just so happens they like to explore different types of wars. Time for the little sister to trash talk the big sister.
I'll lose it in the deck.
Here the stars are not moving, and now they are, so -1 point. Riker performs Picard maneuver number 3, and they all rearrange the chairs. Geordi's thinking of that time when Tasha asked him out. Tan Su says they will be killed in 20 hours if they don't do what the Alliance wants, but the Alliance never gives the Enterprise a point of contact. Which means they'll probably be killed in 20 hours, and the Alliance will say, you never called us. 1 point lost since there's no reference to the escape pod sitting out of signal, which is what escape pods do. I believe this is the first time anybody suggested sending weapons through the transporter. Riker made the mistake of saying it's too dangerous to send her down there. He should have come up with a better way of saying, we don't trust you. That gave her the chance to flip out on him. Riker hates it when women tell him off. And it happens a lot. Now he's gonna go cry to the captain, a girl yelled at me.
Cut the deck into 2 even piles.
Beverly says it will take a few hours for the DNA results to come through, but it should really be instant. She's just saying that because she knows not to trust her. See, Beverly listened to Deanna. Ishara wants to know how Tasha died. Data says she was killed by a giant blob of goo in a poorly written episode. Ishara says she should have waited a year or two when the writers got better. Riker comes back with his tail between his legs, admitting that a woman was right. O'Brien says, I number 2. This is really a stupid idea. They should have replicated their proximity detectors and beamed them all over the city. That would have really messed the place up. And these guys really suck at tracking her. Look, they're right behind her. How did they not see her? O'Brien says the transformer is blocking her signal. This is a nice little firefight. I have to take a point since both Riker and her were able to beam out, and she is unconscious but could still hold on to her phaser. And he wasn't holding her when the transport started, so minus 1 more point. It's just in Jonathan Frakes' contract he gets to hold a girl in each episode.
Hey?
Picard says, welcome back. They are sisters. You should have let her die down there, and good job. Riker says, we lost Tasha and I didn't want to lose her as well. But Picard says, don't get emotional on me. Beverly says, women are tougher than men, so you should feel no pain. Picard comes by to thank Ishara in person, but she just wants to bash her sister some more. Bad idea, since Picard thought very highly of her. He really gets under her skin without knowing it by saying she would be proud of you.
One more time?
1 point lost. That's Ishara's stand-in the reflection, and she's not talking. Worf takes a second to check out the hot girl in the catsuit. 1 point lost for bad English. He should say, and to me. Ishara says, wow, a machine can have friends? Data says, yes, and wait till I tell you what I did with Tasha. I wouldn't mind doing that with her sister, too. Geordi says, we will have to drill. Ishara sees this as an opportunity to have her implant removed. Data says, the narrator thinks we should replicate the implant and beam hundreds of them down to the city. That would cause all the chaos we need, but that would be too easy, so let's do something else. So if you join the gang, you have an explosive implanted in you. What if the opposing gang programmed the proximity computer to detonate all of them? That would be a mess. Ishara sweet talks Data while he's thinking, cool, I'm gonna do the nasty with her too. Ishara is making her move on Data, but has other plans.
And again?
Data reports the news to Captain Picard. Deanna says something isn't right. I don't trust her. But Picard and Data both ignore her, so minus 1 point. Deanna just looks so thrilled that they ignored her again. Deanna says, Data, why are you so supportive of Ishara? Data responds with, didn't you know? In the deleted scenes, she did the robot. Another point lost for Ishara being on the bridge unescorted. Ishara says on the colony, people only do things for you because they want something in return. That's what she's doing right here.
How many cards?
11.
Ishara says, thanks for last night, the sex was good, and now everybody on the bridge knows you did both the Yars. According to the stardate, 3 days have passed, which means the Arco crew should have been killed by now, so minus 1 point. It looks like Beverly's gonna grab Ishara's boob. Now she quotes the Vulcan computer.
How do you feel?
Ishara gives Data the implant with the hope that no one will remember they should put it back in her if they send her back down there.
Take 5.
You'd think with a planet this big, the colonists would disperse and not constantly fight each other in an underground city. 1 point lost for a single set of doors on the turbolift, and Worf is super tall. Michael Dorn must have terrible headaches after a long day of wearing that headpiece. Geordi says, number 3. This is heartbreaking. They drill through a perfectly good matte painting. Shout out to them beaming down facing away from each other, but minus 1 point for the first and second officers beaming down together in a hostile environment. Riker shows his phaser skills, and ouch, that stuntman landed on his neck. Aren't they supposed to match settings before they fire together? 1 point lost for running over a rubber door. The crewman is thinking, maybe you should use bolt cutters instead of a phaser so close to my hand. This stuntman gets to do a Slinky impersonation. Riker says, Data, you're with me, and the first thing they do is split up. The purpose of this scene is so everybody can get a good view of Ishara's butt.
Throw them away.
Data realizes he has been misled this entire time. The next point is lost because the overload noise is quieter after the commercials. It was obvious they used 2 separate takes, so minus 1 more point. Poor Data realized he just had sex with a double agent. Aww. He's like, damn, you're good. Even Riker couldn't mislead me. Either this is a warning shot or she really sucks with a phaser. And again, she doesn't drop her phaser when she's unconscious, so minus 1 more point. Look quick, this is a rare time Data shoots at somebody and he shot at a woman. Data puts his phaser back cowboy style. 1 point lost for having Ishara on the bridge. She should be in the brig. Worf plays director and says, stand on that dot. Now for the shouting match. This is why she shouldn't be on the bridge. She just tried to shoot 2 of them. Riker's like, we got phasers, let's just destroy the colony. 1 point lost here. Security should have escorted her, not the guy she just tried to kill. Picard and Riker have a heart-to-heart that they missed all those clues. And Deanna is like, you two are a bunch of dumbasses. I told you 3 times, but nobody listens to me. Ishara wants to know why Data won't talk to her. Data's like, the sex wasn't that good. Tasha was way better. Ishara apologizes for hurting his feelings. Data says, I am an android, I don't have feelings. In reality, he does have his own version of feelings, and I think he likes saying that line just to piss her off, like he never really cared.
Okay, now pick one of those.
1 point lost for strange lines on the left for the special effects equipment. Data can't stop thinking about Ishara. Riker says, that's because you got really suckered by a hot blonde in a tight catsuit. It's all a part of being human. Data says, maybe we should have listened to Deanna after all because she warned us 3 or 4 times and we just ignored her. Riker says, I ignore her every single time. That's why she broke up with me. Then Riker says, Data, have a seat and tell me, how was the sex? Everybody but Data knows he is not spared the emotional consequences. He just has them differently. Data just realized, hey, we just sent her back without the implant. She's gonna do the same thing all over again. She duped us one last time. The final point is lost for Data having one long index fingernail. So, who were the hoodlums? Christopher Michael has a whopping 150 screen credits, mostly as police officers. He was on Babylon 5, The X-Files, Fresh Prince, and will be back one more time on Deep Space Nine. Vladimir Velasco was in Bring 'Em Back Alive, Simon and Simon, and Jag. Don Merault was on Automan, The Golden Girls, and Miss Congeniality 2. And Beth Toussaint was a track star in high school. She's also on Babylon 5, as well as Dallas and Cheers. Legacy, an excellent example of how the poker game foreshadows the rest of the show, gets a score of 73. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and I'll see you again next week.
That's your card?